Oh, yes, I do have a nice new chair. Isn't it grand? I feel like I'm in a good mood today. Hello all of you little demons, Jules here for WhatCulture.com, back again with another episode of the awesomely named and awfully hosted Choose Your Own Adventure, where you, yes you who is trying to move your cats onto a raw diet and has unfortunately found out that tripe absolutely bloody stinks, yes, you get to decide what I dole out to you lovely people each and every week. And this week we have Jedi Spartan 38 for their suggestion of video game sequels that never ever came to light. And this is the thing. Through no fault of their own, developers and publishers can experience problems that means that games that have inbuilt fan bases just don't get that chance at a sequel. And it's quite sad actually, because when you look around at all the other tosh that's flooding the market, you think, why are these games stuck on the shelf? But there we go, such is life, I'm afraid. So what we're going to do today is dream. We are going to dare to dream, to dig up the corpses, look at the bones and say, that's definitely a skeleton, and also that's a sequel that should have made it to market. As I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 best video game sequels that never happened. Don't you go thinking they happened, because they didn't. Didn't at all. But also say hi to me in the live chat right here, and also put your suggestions for next week's episode down in the comment section below. But also, my friends, there is a kind of special announcement at the end of this video, so stay tuned. I know, I'm such a tease. Anyway, let's get on with the list. Number 10, The Thing 2. So, let's kick things off with a straight 100% fact. John Carpenter's The Thing is one of the greatest sci-fi horror movies, and say it with me, kids, of all time. That's me pretending to be assimilated there. I mean, you can't argue with it. It's just pure brilliance. So when I, as a kid, found out that there was also a video game to come alongside this film, and that video game was good, and that it dropped in 2002, I don't know why that was a thing. Well, I did this, I'll tell you this much. Senpai. This game had it all. It looked like the dog's bollocks and had situations equally as hairy. But what made this title so great is that it implemented a paranoia system, meaning that you had to keep checking on your teammates to see if they had lost their minds, or worse, become assimilated. Oh, and it had a brilliant burst out mechanic that meant that enemies could literally explode from within other NPCs. Noish. So of course I played it, and of course I loved it, but my dreams were crushed harder than the comment section finding out that none of the female WhatCulture staff will actually ever sleep with them no matter how hard they thirst. Seriously, have a drink, you thirsty mutt. Because it was announced that the game had a planned sequel but was cancelled after the devs' computer artworks closed down. Not so noish. Why the sequel nor the ideas put in place ever made it to market is, well, beyond anyone's guess really. I guess you could say it is most definitely a thing, but a sad thing at that. Number 9, Castlevania Resurrection. So given that the Castlevania franchise has over 40 games in its library, you might expect one or two to slip by under the radar, but you know what? We should never turn down the prospect of getting a Vania in my Vanias. Castlevania Resurrection, the initially planned 16th installment of the series, was actually doing really well in terms of development, but unfortunately it was cancelled. And it was done so for quite an unusual reason. You see, it was canned on the same day that the PS2 was announced, and was basically Konami saying that they didn't have faith in the Sega Dreamcast, which was going to be Resurrection's launching pad. And while it might seem like a strange idea to instantly cancel a game just because another console was released, as we know, the Dreamcast, well, it kind of died a horrible, slow death, and I can't believe that I'm saying this about a company that decided to chase pachinko machines and drop Hideo Kojima, but Konami, right here, was actually pretty sensible.
Oh, get out of my mouth, it's dirty, these words.
Number 8, Chrono Trigger Crimson Echoes. Now this next entry is especially sad because you might be sitting there as a Chrono Trigger or Cross fan and just be like, what? There's another game in the Chrono Trigger / Cross franchise? Well, yes, but also no, because this wasn't actually an official game, but actually a fan-made game that was going to bridge the gap between Chrono Trigger and Chrono Cross, and it was chef kiss good. Volunteers worked tirelessly on this game and it looked amazing, but an astounding 5 years later, when they were almost finished, then came a cruel twist of fate, as Square Enix themselves issued the creators with a cease and desist of their own mere weeks before the completed project was to be released into the wild. Now, I'm kind of in two minds about this, because yes, technically it is Square's IP, they can do with it what they want, and it does create a bit of an issue if fans are trying to sell the game, but at the same time, when you look at like Sonic Mania and Street Fighter X Mega Man, those were fan-made games that were given like the blessing by the publishers, and they did really well for both parties. So why Square Enix decided to shut this down so close to completion does seem a bit petty. But it's not the only time they'll be on this list, I'll tell you that much. Number 7, Legacy of Kain, Dead Son. Oh, Nosgoth, what a strange little title you were. Now, I played this game a while back at EGX, and I have to admit, it was okay. But when the devs came up to me and were like, oh yeah, this is actually a follow-on from the Legacy of Kain franchise, I was like, I'm sorry, what? I'm sorry, my friend. Are you stabbing me in the face right now? Because this is not Legacy of Kain, let me tell you that much. People wanted a follow-up to the Legacy of Kain series, not an online multiplayer offering, and this gut punch was made even worse when I found out that there originally was a sequel called Dead Son that got 3 years into development before being repurposed into Nosgoth.
Disgusting.
And fans only found out about this by digging through the files of Nosgoth and finding textures and information about the vampire project that never saw the light of day. Or technically it did, and it turned to dust because vampires. Oh, come on, garlic my balls. Egg Daddy's just trying to make a joke. Get on with your life. Number 6, Saints Row Money Shot. Now here's the thing, I absolutely adore the Saints Row franchise, going from what was effectively a GTA clone with a bit of spice over to something that is so monumentally insane that you can't help but be pulled into its gravitational orbit. It is a monolith of gaming. In fact, if I were to describe how much I loved it, you know where this is going. Osley, my friend, it is time to strike up the band.
Again, oh for God's sakes.
James, put down that bass and pick up the jug. Because today, we're going country. Keep this in. Oh, Saints Row, I love you all day long. Shooting people in the faces, or him with a 4-foot dong. Hey, Saints Row, Saints Row. I f***ing hate. I'll tell you what, jug solo. How do you play the jug? It's got one note. Anyway, hate country, love some. Anyway, hate country, love Saints Row. However, despite the franchise being a runaway success, apparently there was meant to be a sub-sequel set between Saints Row 2 and 3 that never made it through development. Money Shot, as it was known, would focus on a character named Cypher and would have used combat centered around trick shots using guns, letting player manipulate the bullet in midair after it was fired. Now, it's unclear why this game was actually cancelled, but maybe its focused gameplay actually didn't sit well with the kind of more sporadic and free-form approach that the rest of the series was going for. But either way, I feel like we really missed out here because that concept sounds brilliant. And I mean, if you do want to play something similar to that, my friend Pedro, oh, that game's good. Check it out. Number 5, Fallout 3 Van Buren. Now, it may come as a bit of a surprise to you, but technically the Fallout 3 that we ended up playing was actually Fallout 4. To better explain, before Bethesda took over the reins, there was a Fallout 3 in development named Van Buren, and that was going to be, well, quite an interesting title to say the least. The game was developed by Black Isle Studios, whose main goal was to allow players to have more agency over their game. The studio was going to let them decide whether to play the title in a turn-based fashion like Fallout 1 or 2, or go completely real-time, which is pretty ambitious, right? And the title was going to start you off with your character waking up in prison, which ironically would become a classic Bethesda trope, and see them escape in order to find out why they were imprisoned in the first place. Now, much has been written and documented about the rise and fall of Van Buren, and I encourage you to check it out because honestly, it sounds like a truly impressive title. Number 4, Silent Hills. This is more like the Konami that we know, rebalancing the scales as it were, because here they are with one of their biggest fuck-ups ever. After deciding that apparently having one of the most visionary directors on their team and his amazing IP franchise of Metal Gear wasn't worth it, they decided to bin them both off and focus on what really mattered, pachinko machines. But unfortunately, it meant that after playing PT, we knew that that was all we were going to get of the Silent Hills that could have been. And my good God, did it sound good. I mean, not only did you have Hideo Kojima, Guillermo del Toro helping out with the character designs, but Junji Ito, a classic, famed, iconic horror manga artist who does some of the most bizarre concepts possible. They were all going to work together on this holy trifecta of terror. But Konami just came in and was just like, looks real good here, pal. Oh, dropped it. Don't worry, I'll pick it back a bit. Oh, dropped it again. Oh, butterfingers. Don't worry, I'll rescue the franchise by putting it in as DLC for Dead by Daylight. I'm literally spitting up. I'm coughing up bile. This is how much it annoys me. Moving on, I don't want to talk about it anymore. Number 3, Final Fantasy Fortress. Right, so Final Fantasy Fortress sounds on paper like my ideal game. It's set in the Final Fantasy XII universe and had a combat system that was kind of part RTS, and then at times you could go down and take to the battle yourselves in like a Dynasty Warriors fashion, but with all of the Final Fantasy gubbins around it. That is my wet and daydreams combined. And yet, Square Enix took this dream from me, stabbed it in the heart, like a wee baby. My baby boy. Oh yeah, my chair reclines now. Ooh, yeah. Ooh, yeah. In fact, you know what, Osley, while you're here, I want you.
Me?
Yes, you. To get up the Chonkometer, which is a new system in which I will measure how chonky good a game will be. And as you can see here on the Chonkometer, Final Fantasy Fortress, there's chonky. Square Enix was supposed to pay Grin Studios a sum of $16.5 million for the entire creation of Final Fantasy Fortress. However, despite working on the game for several months, Square Enix for some reason didn't drop them a penny. Indeed, Grin co-founder Bo Anderson believed that the company had turned on the idea of Fortress after the dev's other game, Bionic Commander, received negative press on release. And the back and forth would actually see Grin go bankrupt, never receiving a dime for their efforts. Pretty brutal, right? Number 2, Fez 2. When you think of the phenomenal Fez game, you likely do so with this little addendum of Phil Fish, the game's creator, who, well, let's just say he's a very passionate man, in the same way that a person that goes and cuts up dogs to put in sandwiches is passionate about farm-to-table feeding. Regardless of your personal opinions on Fish and his rants about his fan base and the industry itself, one thing is for sure, he definitely loves his game and, well, didn't want to share it with anyone else if they pissed him off. Because after an argument on Twitter, we all got punished by never being able to receive Fez 2, a game that Fish said was in development but now that he was going to take home with his cube-shaped ball. And it's kind of hard not to be bitter about this because the game was fantastic, but at the same time, I do have to admire the man for sticking to his guns. It's just, could he have done so in a less petty way? But on the plus side, try not to worry because the IP and apparently his company are up for sale, so potentially somebody could buy this and make the game that we all desperately want to happen. Fingers crossed. And number 1, Conker's Other Bad Fur Day. So Conker's Bad Fur Day is one of the most iconic video games ever made. In fact, there are so many people today that still want to play this game and seek it out that it just makes so much sense for this franchise to carry on, right? Well, since Microsoft and Rare never kind of really go in the same sentence together, because under their ownership, Rare has done, well, nothing with it. I mean, effectively, Conker's been sent out to die twice with the HoloLens, absolute travesty, young Conker. And also we had, what was the other thing that was in? Project Spark. That looked like it could have been amazing, but why did you put Conker in it? Just take that model, put him in his own game. But what makes it worse is to find out that Rare actually had, at one point, a Conker sequel planned and ready to go. From what had been shown to us, the plot would have revolved around Conker battling it out with the now undead Panther King, who had been brought back by Death himself. This was even meant to lead into another game, completing a trilogy of bushy-tailed titles. But Microsoft, it seems, had other plans, and outside of the Rare replay, they're just leaving money on the table. I don't understand why, unless they're wearing the HoloLens kit and they can't see the bloody money on the table because that thing is a goddamn travesty to design. Still though, we can but hope. And there we go, my friends. Those were the 10 best sequels that never happened. I hope that you enjoyed that, and please let me know what you thought about it down in the comments section below, as well as any other suggestions you've got for next week's episode. And here's the little announcement that I was going to say. I know that a lot of people have been saying that they really enjoyed this format of you guys doing user-generated content that we react to. So what we were thinking of, what if we took this and made it into its own channel, where all of the lists there were ideas made by you guys or presented by us or even populated with your own choices. We were toying with the idea of calling it WhatCulture, but that might change as it goes. But if you like that idea, then let me know, because this, right here, this is the inception point and you are on the ground floor. So help me shape something amazing, potentially. But yes, if you want to chat to me further about anything else, you can do so over on Twitter at RetroJ with a 0. I'm not going to do it again, Osley. You get one take with this. And yeah, if you want to chat to me further than that, you can go to check out Live and Let's Dice. It's my personal gaming channel, doing lots of live streams and board game stuff there, so it'd be fantastic to see you over there. But before I go, as we well know right now, there is a lot going on in the world. There was one event that leads into another event, and you can't talk about either apparently on YouTube because you'll get demonetized. How does that make any sense? But I hope that you are well. I hope that you're treating yourself with love and respect, because you deserve that, and so does your neighbor. I'm just going to state this as clearly as I possibly can. If you are in a position to help other people, then please do that, because it takes so little effort to be nice to someone. And it makes their situation a ton better. Be that if it's you supporting them mentally by checking in with friends to see how it is, or financially if you're going to support some causes that are going on at the moment that are essential to bring equality to the world, which is always needed. At this point in time, there is no point in punching downwards. We are meant to be lifting each other up to create a better society for the future. How can we go forward if we are doing so in completely different directions? Think how much we could achieve if we just worked together. So go out there with love and not hate in your hearts. Because I bloody love you, and you're a f***ing ledge. Catch you next week.